Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Shed That Shit podcast. I'm Alyx Coble-Frakes, CEO of the Endo Period and one of your co-hosts. And of course, we are joined by Aljolynn of Ladybox. If you haven't checked out our companies, please do it. Just pause this episode, go do it, do yourself a favor. We are here to help vaginas and cycles and all of the coolness that comes with it. So welcome. And today you can see it's just us if you are watching this, and if you can hear, it's just us. So we are not going to have a guest today, and we're going to be jamming on a topic that is pretty intense, but definitely close to both of our hearts. So we are going to talk about healthcare, women's healthcare, reproductive healthcare, menstrual healthcare, cyclical healthcare, and how it is not always taken seriously, unfortunately, by medical professionals. So we are going to dive into that topic in a little bit, but we are going to hit you at the top with a cycle check-in. So Aljolynn, I'm curious, how are you checking in with your cycle today?
So I'm guessing that I'm maybe somewhere where it may have been a menstrual, because I've got like little cramps here and there, but I'm not sure. Again, I have an IUD, so a bit of free range cycling here. I do know that earlier this month, when I was really feeling myself, I did the check here, and there was like a nice little string. Is that what we call it? Like a string or whatever happening with the discharge when you ovulate. Yes, thank you. The cervical mucus. So that did happen earlier this month. But I don't know. I don't know where I'm at now. But I did have a very telling sign earlier this month, but I don't really have telltale signs right now.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I had a really interesting conversation with a physician earlier this week and telling her how we do tracking and support women, even who are on hormonal contraception. And she was just like, well, they're not having real cycles or periods. I was like, it's different, obviously, or, you have a withdrawal if you're on taking a pill pack and you have a withdrawal bleed. But I was really trying to get my point across that it's still valid and important to track and to understand, because even if they're not your hormones, they're still hormones impacting your body, and you are going to have different moods, and maybe even more radically different moods than if you were not on a type of hormonal contraception. And she was not buying it. She's like, it's fake. I don't think there's a point of having women use your app if they don't have their own hormones, if they're not naturally cycling. I'm like, we're going to have to agree to disagree on this one, ma'am.
Yeah.
Because you are still having mood changes. You're still having things. That's what I'm hearing you say, right? You're still having fluctuations, even if it's not as easy to tie down, because there are different hormones going through your body.
Yeah. Like this week I'm tired. And so usually when I'm, menstruating, I am tired, a little bit more tired. So I'm like, maybe this is when I would have had a period. I don't know.
So we are for advocating listening to your body and body literacy all of the time, no matter what kind of external influences and impacts there might be going on, because I think you can still glean a lot from your pattern, even if it's not natural. So that's a good way to start this episode off. I am in the follicular phase, but I'm still feeling pretty tired. You can hear my voice sounds very deep right now. I'm still recovering from COVID, and it's just hanging on. I'm like, wow.
Yeah. Well, you're looking fly.
Baritone.
You're looking fly.
So that's how I'm checking in. I am checking in tired. So that's why it's really, really important, no matter what your hormonal situation is, to continue to come back to yourself each and every day, rather than saying, oh, I'm in the ovulation phase, I should be doing this, I should be feeling like that, because sometimes it doesn't line up. So trust yourself, trust your own bodily feelings every day. And that's a good way to move forward in the space. So
also fuck that word should.
Yeah, fuck that word. Stop shitting all over yourself. We're shedding that shit right now. Yeah. All right. So trigger warning. We are going to talk about some dark topics today, some intense topics that are not the fault of the person or people we may bring up, or even our own stories, but really looking at this system of distrust and the system that teaches women and menstruators to distrust their own bodies. So we're going to put some of that in the show notes, but just there may be some tough topics that we're going to go into today. So we wanted to put that out there at the top. So Aljolynn, why don't you kind of run folks through the story that we were talking about offline if they haven't gotten the chance to hear about it yet, or if it hasn't hit their newsfeed, and kind of set that frame for us?
Sure. So on January 22nd, 2022, a 30-year-old Black woman named Aubrion Rogers, her name is spelled Aubrion Rogers, she passed away due to complications of having endometriosis. And what I mean by that is around, I think, 2020, so just 2 years ago, she was diagnosed with endo, and had been like going back and forth with her doctors about, you know, treating it and helping her alleviate her pain. You know, endo is a very painful condition, and it's a chronic pain condition, and it's real. So I think about like, so she was supposed to have some kind of procedure. I don't know if it was an ablation or a hysterectomy, but she was supposed to have a procedure to help alleviate that pain. But on the 22nd, she went into cardiac arrest from how painful the symptoms are of endometriosis. Like she couldn't, it was literally unbearable. So she passed away because her doctors, or like her healthcare providers, wouldn't listen to her soon enough. Like they did listen, but not soon enough. And so that is the story for many women, people with uteruses and menstruators, you know, telling us that like our pelvic pain is normal, but it's not normal. And so, you know, throughout time, we have really come to distrust and question whether or not our pain is valid, which can be fatal. So that's like part of the anger that I'm feeling, and, you know, some shit that we need to shed, and trusting our own body and learning about our body literacy too, like you mentioned before, Alex. So that's what's going on. I mean, I've talked to a couple friends this week that I just like. One friend, she is a white woman in her late 30s, married, has children, and has good healthcare coverage, so insurance. And so she's able to go to healthcare providers. She has a naturopath, and she has a healthcare provider that listens to her. She actually went into her first appointment with her with like a couple pages of notes talking about like the pain that she's been experiencing over the past 6 months. And then she went into that doctor's appointment, and her doctor was like, okay, yeah, do you want to, you know, do a procedure so we can take a look and see what's going on, and, you know, talk about like the next steps? And my friend was like, wait, you're actually listening to me? You're listening to, I don't have to like share my whole like pages of notes with you? And then another friend, she's recovering from an ablation this week after having dealing with endometriosis for 5 years. And it took a while for her to find the right doctor to actually listen to her and help her. And her doctor apparently has like a good Instagram page that gives like tips and focuses on endometriosis and adenomyosis. I don't know how to say the other one very well. But I mean, those are two white women that are in their 30s. Both are married, have like healthcare coverage, that have been able to get help. Sometimes, a lot of the times, Black women and women of color don't get listened to when they need help because we're just supposed to be tougher, stronger, deal with it. I don't know.
Yeah, it fucking sucks. It really, really, really sucks. Thank you for sharing about that story. I saw it come across one of the Endo pages that I follow for the Agenda account, and it was heartbreaking, and at the same exact time, so unshocking, because we hear these stories daily. And even if they don't get the same kind of media coverage, we hear them from our friends, from our family members, from other women. And there's just this consistent lack of believing women and menstruators when they talk about their bodies, then laced with the intersectional lens of systemic racism in the United States, and how that drastically reduces or changes people's access to healthcare. And let's be super clear that reproductive healthcare is healthcare and should just be covered like all other kinds of fucking healthcare. And what I think interestingly does to continue to have women and menstruators have really tough relationships with their own bodies, because they're constantly being told not to trust their own physical symptoms. Right. So it's like this really compounding effect that can be super demoralizing when we're looking at this space. It's just, it sucks. It really sucks.
As a reminder, period poops are normal. Periods are normal. The way that we bleed differently is normal, but pelvic pain is not normal. Discomfort, okay. Pain, not okay. Go get that checked out.
Yeah. And it's just like, we've been told over and over again that it's normal, and period cramps are normal, and pain is normal. And so when anyone complains about that, they just get brushed off consistently. But these things should not be going on in your body. So this is definitely a sign to get help. It's just so frustrating, because like, what the fuck do we do? I grew up in Iowa, in rural Iowa. And so even if people had access to healthcare, it's really hard to get access to doctors and medical professionals. Like the best real hospital is like an hour away from where I grew up.
Wow.
So like there was a county hospital, but they even shut down their maternity ward like 10 years ago. So the next closest real hospital, that unless you're in an emergent situation to deliver a baby, is an hour away. And we have 4 to 5 to 6-ish months of winter in a row with horrible snows. And like, what the fuck do you do? Right? It's just,
what the fuck do you do? I want to know.
Drive really slow in a blizzard and hope to get to Iowa City on time.
Oh my gosh.
Or risk having a pregnancy in a place that's not set up for complicated maternal deliveries. So it's just like, even when people do potentially have the access to the healthcare, we don't always have access to specialists, or, getting an hour away. And for some people it's farther, 2 to 3 hours away, to get access to someone who could actually take you seriously. So this problem is really overwhelming.
It is. It's really overwhelming.
So we're people who work in this space and kind of tangentially to the healthcare issue, but how do you think through this problem, or like potential advice you would give to someone who is dealing with some of these things?
I mean, so again, we're not medical professionals, so we're not giving medical advice. We are also not health insurance professionals, so we're not going to give you insurance advice either, or financial advice. However, just like a random, not so random, but kind of random note, I had a friend in December. She had a stroke, and she actually had to get airlifted off of, and we live off of a peninsula, but she lives on an island technically, but the closest hospital is like a helicopter ride away to help her, actually help her with her stroke. So she has insurance to be airlifted. I didn't even know that was a thing. So take a look and see if you can get airlift insurance, medical insurance coverage, just in case you need to get airlifted. It saved her a lot of money. It would have cost her tens of thousands of dollars instead of like a couple $100 to pay for that helicopter ride. But she's doing really well, like recovering really well. And she actually just told me the other day, she's like, I can't wait for menopause. I'm like not having fun menstruating with a, stroke body. I'm like, let me know if you need some period underwear. I'll run some over to you. Anyway, so I think like the biggest thing is to continue talking about like what you're going through with other women and menstruators, because I noticed that like when we can share those stories with each other, somebody is going to think of somebody that can help you. Either if it's like somebody that's going through the same thing as you, or be like, oh, I know this doctor or this like naturopath. And we as women are really good at connecting people and caring about people. So my biggest thing is keep talking about it, be fearless and unapologetic about talking about it and taking up that space. Because the thing that has happened is like, we've been told to shut the fuck up about our problems, when really we should be shouting about our problems and sharing about our problems so that we can help each other better.
I just want to cry right now. It is just so much fucking bullshit. And I'm not going to cry because fuck the man and the system. I would say in terms of continuing to talk about it, and this sucks because it should just be easy to take you at your word. But it's not, because the whole system is stacked against believing these kind of problems exist. So please take notes. Take really impeccable notes about yourself, whether and your health and your body and changes that you notice. And if you see that you weren't having pain and now you are having pain, take notes about that, because it's super easy to brush us off and deny us if we don't have proof. Document. It's bullshit. You should just be able to say something's changed and now it's not. But if you can say 6 months ago on April 25th, I had my first period that felt like this when it had been feeling like this, and something's wrong with my body and it's not getting better. And I need you to look at it now because this was going on and now this is going on. And if you talk about words like luteal, I have found that if I throw out any potentially scientific sounding word, I seem to get taken more seriously at the doctor. It should not be that way. Also, this is not, of course, every medical professional and provider. There are great people working in this space, but they're just not the fuck enough of them. Like when we talk about the endometriosis, I think there are like 100 specialists in the country. PCOS, maybe 100 specialists in the United States, right? So while there are those gems, and if you are lucky enough to get one of those people who's in your corner, fantastic. We understand this is not everybody, but it's just so consistently that we find this to be not the case. When I was pregnant, I had so much attitude from every single medical professional around what my body was doing or wasn't doing, because they just expect people to not be taken, to not know. And so they feel like they can push them around because they are the expert. Well, the only fucking person who's an expert about your body is you. You're the only one who's lived in your body for your entire life, unless you have some strange immaculate conception situation going on, but like you are the authority. And so if you can provide dates and if you can provide context and you can say, well, my discharge was doing this and now it's doing this. And I've noticed some pain in the luteal phase. And I know that the luteal phase should be this many days long, but all of a sudden it went down to 9 days long. Or my period was consistently 5 days and now it's gone to 9 days. Or my cycle, the entire length, right, from day one of your period to day one of your next period was 32 days and now it's 20 days. If you can be specific and you can be detailed and you can bring your own arsenal with you, you are harder to ignore. Again, the fucking world shouldn't be like this, but it is right now. So take good notes about your own shit, because you are the only one who ultimately cares about getting it figured out.
Another thing is like, even if you get a bad vibe from your doctor or, like care provider, you can change them. You don't have to stick with them. I remember being pregnant and I was assigned some old white man OB, and I did not like his bedside manner. And I was like, I don't want you to be my doctor. Is there somebody else? Because I don't like your attitude. Because you're making me like I told him, because like I had, I shared like they ask you those questions, or like the nurses ask you the questions, and then like the doctor looks at like the paperwork or whatever, and he sees in there that like I am a single mom, and I am a brown single mom. And I just felt like his attitude towards me was just like not cool. And so I was like, I would like a female doctor, please, who's going to be nice to me, because you're not nice. And he
yes.
was like, okay.
Mama,
So
yes.
You can change your doctors even if you don't have a good vibe with them. It's so important to have a good vibe with them.
And you can get a second opinion. You can say, I'm actually not consenting to that procedure right now. I'm not going to do that. I need a second opinion. You can also say no. This is something I didn't know that you could say no to a medical professional. You don't have to consent to any procedure. They would try to do cervical checks when I was, like seeing the dilation. I'm like, nope, I'm not going to do that. They would try to weigh me and I would say, nope, I weighed myself at home. I'm not going to be weighed here. Yep. They'd be like, thank you. We can move on to the next part now. Yeah. I had no idea. And yeah, they probably think we are combative or assholes, but it doesn't fucking matter because we can advocate for that kind of care. So this is definitely a takeaway from this episode is you've got to be the one. And it's hard. It can be scary. We've been taught to trust these professionals, and there's a good reason, they have some information that we don't have, but we are the authority on our own bodies. And so if it does not feel good, get a second opinion, say no as many times as you need to say no. Because sometimes you have to repeat yourself. So,
and like, as you can tell, like the baseline for like a good response from your medical provider should be, oh, okay, let's, like it shouldn't be, I doubt that. Like, that's not the baseline. The baseline is like, oh, okay, let's talk more about that, or let's take a look at that. Cause like another story, like 2017, I had cramps that hurt so bad that I had to pull over to the side of the road to just like let the cramp process. And it hurt. Like it was so painful. And then I call a doctor to get looked at. And her baseline was like, oh my gosh, you shouldn't have to feel that pain. Let's take a look at it. Maybe you had a burst, like ovarian cyst or something. Let's have you get like an ultrasound. That's like the baseline that it should be. That's the baseline. Let's help you.
And it's not like anything, it's not going to change in a vacuum if we don't advocate for better care, if we don't refuse to deal with shitty bedside manner. And we understand this is a very privileged part of the conversation, right? Because sometimes you may live in rural Iowa or rural somewhere or inner city, wherever, and your insurance may not have any other options for you. And it's not always easy to get a different opinion. But if we continue to log those complaints and run it up the chain and advocate for ourselves in that way, that is the only way that the system is going to provide any other kind of experience collectively for us. So we recognize your bravery and we recognize the challenge it is to be honest about these topics. But it's fucking bullshit. 30-year-old women should not die from endometriosis. It's not acceptable. We deserve better health care than that.
Yep. Yeah.
Any other thoughts for this episode, Aljolynn?
I know that like in different parts of the country, there's ballots, like there's voting, there's election season happening. So I encourage you to take a look at your ballot packets and like know what kind of bills are, trying to get passed. Take a look at them and see if any of them are related to reproductive or health rights, women's rights, and vote accordingly. So that's like my last tidbit.
We just love you. We love you and we see you and we understand that this is fucking challenging, and collectively we can make a push for a really different kind of future for ourselves. So thank you for tuning in today to the Shed That Shit podcast.
And if you want to be a guest, always feel free to email us at podcast@shedtheshame.co, which still needs to get updated. Sorry, folks, but that's what it is right now. So email us.
Thank you. And remember, just keep it real and messy, just like periods. Bye, everybody.